Hey guys, it is I, Kuroninja, and there have been a lot of people complaining about Kamen Rider Gotchard, but I've also seen more people complaining about those complainers. It doesn't help that this season came after Kamen Rider Geats, one of the best seasons to come out of this era of Kamen Rider. Now here's the thing, I've been a fan of Kamen Rider Gotchard since episode 1, and it's not just because I like trading cards. It's not finished yet, but Kamen Rider Gotchard might become my favorite season of the Reiwa era, and I'm gonna try and convince you why it's better than you think. First off, I'd like to give some reasons why I think some people don't like Kamen Rider Gotchard. If you ask some people, they'll probably tell you it's because Kamen Rider Gotchard is too lighthearted compared to the last season. But that doesn't make sense, because there's another lighthearted season of Kamen Rider about high school students that came earlier, Kamen Rider Forze, and most people like that season. So if Kamen Rider Forze is well liked, then why isn't Gotchard? Now here's my first theory. I think the reason why most people don't like Kamen Rider Gotchard is because of burnout from watching so many Kamen Rider seasons. Sometimes when you do something and you continue doing it for years on a regular basis, it feels more like you're doing it out of obligation instead of for fun. The Kamen Rider fandom has already been established at the time of making this video, so it's safe to assume there are a lot of people who try to keep up with the current season of Kamen Rider. But in 2011, the Toku fandom was still developing. Most people outside of Japan have probably been introduced to Super Sentai through Shinkenger and Gokaiger, and Gokaiger aired at the same time as Kamen Rider Forze, and Kamen Rider Forze also happens to be a lot of people's first Kamen Rider season. I think another possible reason why people don't like Gotchard is because they don't understand the message it's trying to tell the audience. Kamen Rider Geats isn't just about the Desire Grand Prix, but it's also about how people view entertainment as a whole. The thing is, this message isn't really subtle when you think about it. In the later parts of the series, they get more in your face with the message. Kamen Rider Gotchard has a deep message behind its story. You'll have to think about it more to find it. I have a theory that Kamen Rider Gotchard is a critique of Japanese work culture, but I'll probably talk about it in another video if there's enough interest. And now that I've finished clearing some stuff up, it's time for me to talk about what I like about Kamen Rider Gotchard. One of the things that I've noticed about Kamen Rider Gotchard is that they've got trading cards as a collectible gimmick. Ever since the end of Kamen Rider 01, I've been running out of space, so I decided to stop adding more artifacts to my collection. I've already got a bunch of artifacts from Super Sentai and Kamen Rider, but the thing with trading cards is that they don't take up that much space. Also, on a side note, there's these people who like to keep their artifacts in the box after getting them. What's the point of having an artifact around if you're not going to use it? Anyway, speaking of the cards, one of the things I focus on the most in Kamen Rider besides the artifacts are the villains. Now there is one villain in particular that I'll talk about later, but for now, I'm going to talk about the Amalgams, the main force that Kamen Rider Gotchard has to fight against. For a long time, Kamen Rider has been known for having heroes who use the bad guys' powers for good, even since the very beginning. The Amalgams are interesting because they're using the good guys' powers for bad, and the people who become Amalgams are average humans who have malice in their heart. They weren't corrupted by the main villains or part of some evil organization. The closest thing to that is when one of them simply given encouragement by one of the sisters. I feel like Kamen Rider Gotchard would still work if there weren't any main villains at first and it was only the Amalgams, but the three Dark Sisters are still interesting villains. And speaking of the three Dark Sisters, Lachesis is my favorite character in Kamen Rider Gotchard. She is one of the reasons why I've been enjoying Kamen Rider Gotchard even when it started. I mentioned earlier that Kamen Rider Gotchard would work even without any main villains, but then Alisa Sakamaki probably wouldn't have been cast in the season. I probably wouldn't enjoy Kamen Rider Gotchard as much as I do now. Lachesis gives off a certain vibe when she shows up that keeps my attention on what's about to happen. I could explain more about why Lachesis is my favorite character in the series, but this video is already long enough, so I might make a video about Lachesis in the future. Anyway, that is all for this video. If you enjoyed, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And remember, I have nothing to do with Kuroninja.